Hi family, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about the need to control our tongues so that we can speak more classily and avoid evil.
Now, as Israelites, we know that in order to please our God, we need to have faith in Christ and keep the commandments. At the end of the New Testament, in the book of Revelation, chapter 14, verse 12, it states, "Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of the Most High and have the faith in Christ." Let's look at one of the commandments we were given with regard to the tongue. Matthew 5, verse 48. "Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which in heaven is perfect."
Now, James, Christ's brother, in the book of James, chapter 3, tells us what it is to be a perfect man. Because Christ said, "Be ye perfect," didn't he? So the next question is, well, how do we be perfect? Well, James is telling you. James chapter 3, verse 2. "For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body." What he's saying is, when you don't offend people in word, i.e., you don't offend people when you speak, then you're perfect. That's what being perfect is. That's what James is revealing to us in this verse. And what we can also miss is that James is also saying that by controlling your tongue, you control the rest of your body. So you're in control of your hands, what you touch, what you choose to do, your feet, where you choose to go, your eyes, what you choose to look at. Because remember, he said, "If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle," which means bring into control. When you bridle something, you bring it into control, "the whole body." You see, when you just think about how we can sin with our body, our eyes look at what they're not supposed to look at. Our arm reaches out and our hand touches something we're not supposed to touch. Our foot leads us to somewhere we're not supposed to go. All because we didn't control the tongue. We start to realize how serious this is. And when you continue to read chapter 3, James chapter 3, up to verse 12, James really hones in on how powerful the tongue is. What he's basically saying is, if you can control a member of the body, a small member of the body like the tongue, which is that powerful, then you'll be able to control the rest of your body. And if you can control the rest of your body, what your eyes look at, what your hand touches, where your leg goes, it's going to be a lot less likely for you to commit sin so often. And some people might say, yeah, but I really struggle to control the tongue. I can't control my tongue. Listen to this. James chapter 3, verse 8. "But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison." But you see, family, that doesn't give us license to not try, though. That doesn't give us license to not try and ensure that when we speak to our brethren, we speak non-offensively. I'll be the first to tell you, I find it hard to control the tongue. However, I know that I can choose how I want to say things to my brethren. More often than not. Do I want to say what I want to say and get my point across and be disrespectful and rude when I do that? Or do I want to say what I want to say and get my point across and be kind, be understanding, be forgiving in my language? So James isn't giving us, by saying the tongue can no man tame, he's not giving us a license to just run our tongue. He's saying, listen, he understands it's difficult to control. That's why in James chapter 3, verse 2, he says, "For in many things we offend all." So we offend in a lot of things. In other words, it's very easy for us to offend each other with the tongue. So he understands. He understands that it's easy to offend. However, he's still saying that we can bridle our tongue. And when we bridle our tongue, we bridle the whole body.
And that's true, because we're definitely able to control our tongue when we're talking to our boss at work, or talking to our bank manager, or anyone else in authority.
So we can clearly do it when we need to do it, or when we want to do it, or when we feel it's necessary to do it. We can clearly do it.
So why is it we don't do it with our own people? Why don't we do this amongst each other?
What we often find in Israel, true Israel, us, so-called black people, is that when we're speaking to or about our own people, we're not always so concerned about whether or not we're offending them, and that's problematic.
Our people are the chosen people. You don't just speak to the chosen people any which way. Chosen means royalty. And when you speak to royalty, you are on your P's and Q's.
We have to remember how the Most High feels about Israel. Even as Israelites ourselves, we can't just speak to our fellow Israelites however we want, treat them however we want, because before they were our people, they were his people. So I'm going to read to you from Isaiah 3:15. This is when our people, the nobility, were mistreating their own people. What did the Most High say in Isaiah 3:15? He said, "What mean ye that ye beat my people to pieces and grind the faces of the poor, saith the Most High?" You see the language, my people. Who do you think you are treating my people like this? That's how the Most High feels about Israel. So when we're speaking to our people, or writing about our people, addressing our people, we have to bear in mind how the Most High feels about these people. These are his people.
Our ancestor, King David, understood the power of the tongue. When he was praying to the Most High in Psalm 141, verses 3 and 4, he said this to the Most High: "Set a watch, O Most High, before my mouth. Keep the door of my lips. Incline not my heart to any evil thing, to practice wicked works with men that work iniquity, and let me not eat of their dainties."
And this shows us that our ancestor King David would have been in agreement with James. When James said, again, in James chapter 3 verse 2, "For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body." Now, when you look at the order of King David's prayer, he's saying, "Set a watch over my mouth, keep the doors of my lips. Don't let me incline to any evil thing." He knew that if he didn't control his tongue, the next thing is that he'll put his hand to evil. These are some of the reasons why it's so important, brethren, that we control our tongues and we watch how we speak. And the scriptures continually support the fact that we need to control the tongue. Family, this is an area that many of us in Israel have to work at. But let's take a look at some practical ways in which we can control our tongues so that we don't offend our brethren. So let's look at some practical examples. So, for example, instead of saying, "If you think that that's what the Bible is saying, then you are a," and then you call someone out of their name, you could instead of beginning your sentence with "if you think," because for some reason, when you start a sentence with "if you think," it just suggests you're about to say something rude. So instead, you could just say, "To be honest, I don't see that when I match up the precepts in the Bible." But you know what? If that's what you believe, Christ is going to make everything clear when he returns. So let's just leave it there.
We don't want to be seen as a race of people who cannot manage their emotions and constantly have to resort to calling our own people out of their names.
Or when an Israelite teacher speaks with one of our people on the street who's in an interracial relationship and later titles that video with the words that again call the brother or sister out of their name. It's not love. It's disobeying Matthew 7:12, which says, "Therefore, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets." The Bible gives us many reasons why we should watch our tongues and be careful how we speak. In Proverbs 17:20, it states, "He that hath a froward heart findeth no good, and he that hath a perverse tongue falleth into mischief."
And that really agrees with what James is saying in James 3, verse 2. If you cannot control your tongue, you'll struggle to control the rest of your body. So suddenly your hand is doing things it shouldn't be doing. Fighting, getting into fights, committing adultery, theft. This is all mischief.
Another reason why we need to watch our tongues is because it can ultimately destroy us. In Proverbs 13:3, it says, "He that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life, but he that openeth wide his lips shall have destruction." You see, this particular verse speaks to speaking too much, always having something to say, always ready to make comment. Believe it or not, the Israelites are actually meant to be a quiet people, living a quiet and peaceable life. Listen to this. This is 1 Timothy 2:1 and 2. "I exhort, therefore, that first of all supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty." We're not supposed to be talking too much.
And it's the speaking too much, saying too much, which can get us into trouble. You see it on the news. People lose their nominations for acting roles. They lose their presidency. Sports contracts are withdrawn because people say too much. When you say too much, the chance of sinning is so much higher.
Speaking of saying too much, again, look at Proverb 10, verse 19. "In the multitude of words there wanteth not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise." That's basically saying when you speak too many words, you can't help but sin because you're just saying so much. Sooner or later, you're going to say something that you're not supposed to say. "But he that refraineth his lips is wise." But he that refrains from saying too much is a wise person because they understand that the more I say, the more my chances of sinning.
Another reason to control the tongue, brethren, is what it says in 1 Peter 3, verse 10. "For he that love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil, and his lips that they speak no guile." So what's that saying? A man who refrains his tongue will have great relationships, will have a good life. He doesn't offend anyone. People like being around him. He's kind. The men, male or female, they're nice, they're pleasant people to be around. Their life is rich. They have good relationships. They have friends they can rely on, and they can be relied upon. This is someone you can take to meet your family, to meet people who are important to you, and know this person won't embarrass you, won't say anything to insult your family, insult your friends. You could take this person to a work event. Very, very important. And those kind of people have a rich and fulfilling life.
And then, brethren, another reason why we watch the tongue is due to Proverb 15, verse 1. "A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. It's very easy to get into an altercation by using words that stir up anger. And unfortunately, this can happen quite a bit within Israel. And then before you know it, fists are flying, and people are getting hurt. So again, we have to be very cognizant of the fact that if we choose a soft answer, we turn away that anger instead of using grievous words to stir it up.
Another reason, brethren, why it's important to control our tongue is what we read in Proverbs 12, verse 18. There is that speaketh like the piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise is health. One more time. There is that speaketh like the piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise is health. Telling us that wisdom and that people who are wise bring health to people when they speak. And that people who speak like the piercings of a sword, who hurt people with their tongue, are not wise. That's what this is telling us. So a wise man or woman brings health when they speak. They have understanding that in order to bring their people back to the Most High, they're going to do it with love, care, and wisdom. They're going to heal their people back to restoration. Instead of titling a video, Sambo Kun tries to save the other nations with John 3:16, let's use class and instead title the video, Brother Struggles to Understand John 3:16.
The conclusion of the matter, brethren, when it comes to the tongue, is found in James 1 and 26. So in James 1 and 26, it says, if any man among you seem to be religious, someone of faith, and bridleth not his tongue, but he doesn't control his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is in vain. So I'll read that again. If any man among you seem to be religious, and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is vain. Brethren, remember what we read in Proverbs 10 and 19, that the more we speak, the more the propensity to sin. It's more likely that you'll sin because you're just saying so many words. We're actually meant to be a quiet people. I'm going to read from 1 Thessalonians 4 and 11. And that ye study to be quiet and to do your own business and to work with your own hands as we commanded you. This is Paul's letter to the Thessalonians. He's saying, and that you study to be quiet. So he's telling us how to be quiet and to do your own business, study, work on your own business. That's the way to be quiet. We must never forget Ecclesiasticus 28 and 18. Many have fallen by the edge of the sword, but not as many as have fallen because of the tongue. Wow, isn't that something to think about?
Wow, that's incredible. When you think of all the battles that have taken place since the beginning of time, all the wars, yet the Bible is saying that more have fallen by the tongue. Wow.
Okay, brethren, that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you remember that we're meant to study to be quiet, work on our business to be quiet, and that we're meant to be a quiet and peaceable people. I really hope that's all clear. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in the next video.
Bye.